Hey guys, in today's video we're gonna be creating a URL shortener. So I'm back recording videos after a long time and now I have a camera on. So I hope that this is the beginning of something better and new content, new challenges and new coding exercises. So in today's video we're gonna be creating a URL shortener. It's from backend Brazil. For those who don't know, I'm from Brazil, and this is a GitHub project where there are a couple of challenges: cryptography, loans, points of interest, secure password, and this one that we're gonna be doing today is a URL shortener. So the challenge will be implement a service that allows to shorten long URLs to transform them into a more compact and easier to share URL. So my service is gonna receive a post call on the URL slash shorten URL, and then the return should be the shortener URL, but in the same in the same host. And so that's kind of it. The exits, the URL shortener should receive a long URL as a initial parameter. The short should be a minimum of 5 and a maximum of 10 characters. Only letters and numbers are allowed in the shortener. The shortener URL should be saved in the database with expired date, and on receiving the URL, the shortener URL should be redirected to the original URL that you saved in the database. In case the URL is not found in the base, it should return a 404 not found. So let's go. First we're gonna have to start. You're gonna go to start.spring.io, and we're gonna create a project with Maven, Java. The Java version that I'm using is 17, but you don't have to use it. You can use your own. We're gonna be creating a group here, and project name is gonna be YouTube URL shortener. I'm not gonna put any description. I'm not feeling very creative today. We're gonna use Lombok, Spring Web, and Spring MongoDB. Spring Data MongoDB. These three we're gonna be using, and then we should download another dependency, but later we'll do it. So now we're gonna generate. So now I've imported the URL shortener here in the IntelliJ. I hope my audio is good. I saw a few comments there from back in the day when I was recording videos that the audio was not that good, but I'm trying to make it better. So what we're gonna do first here, we're gonna start configure the project. So first of all, I'll create a Docker compose, but first I'm gonna create a Docker directory here inside the project, and I'll add a Docker compose YAML. I'm gonna copy paste the one that I already have here. So is the services, we're gonna start the services, and then MongoDB is the name of the container. I'm not gonna be putting any password or username because we're running a local project, so we don't have to be that secure. And the parts will be the pattern here from MongoDB. I already have it running, the Docker, so probably gonna fail. So there we go, container Docker MongoDB. If we try to connect, I'm going to disconnect from this one and I'll connect again. There it is, it's already connected here, but the database is not created yet. So what we're gonna do now, we're gonna set the application.yaml to the project, to configure project when running. So it's application properties, but I prefer to go to application.yaml. It's easier to read, and I think it's it's my preference, but I prefer it. So I'm gonna copy paste the one that I already have here. The name of the application will be YouTube URL Shortener. So this is the configuration. I don't think we need this one here, authentication database, since we're not gonna have any authentication. We'll test it later. The database name, it will be Shortener DB. I think it's gonna be YouTube Shortener DB. We're gonna connect in the localhost 27.0.17. The auto index creation is to create the index automatically, and I think that's it for now. Let's try to run the application, see if it's all good. So there it is. We are running the application in 2 seconds for now. So now what we're gonna do, we're gonna create a URL repository. I prefer to start from the repository, the application URL. Actually, we can't create from the repository. We should create a model first, because we're gonna have the type there. So entities dot URL entity. I have a little copy here, but we're gonna be implementing ourselves. So we're gonna create a document, since it's a MongoDB project. So document, the collection name will be URLs. We should be careful, because MongoDB, we got this other thing here, collection. You should be careful with this one. You should pay attention if it is collection or collection. So it's collection, the correct one. So URLs, and since we're using long block, we're gonna have the all args constructor, no args constructor, and the data to do the getters and setters. So what we have here is ID, and we're gonna create the ID as a string. It will be, the string will be the string that is generated on our algorithm to make the shortener URL. So the ID will be the shortened URL. So private string URL, and we're gonna have a indexed expire after 0, and private local date time, we're gonna use it as a expires at. So we're gonna be able to do the expires at logic that it was asked in the project description. So now that we have the entity, we can create the interface, the repository. So repository dot URL repository extends Mongo repository, and we have the type. So the type is URL entity, and the type of the ID is a string. So that's kind of this for now. Now we can create the service, and then we can create the controller to start making the calls. So what we should have here first, I'm gonna be doing a little interface on the service, so we can have a better way to inject the functions from the service. So first of all, let's create a folder called service, and service URL service interface, and the functions in the URL service will be URL response DTO, so shorten URL, and we're gonna have a URL request DTO data, and in this service we're gonna receive the HTTP servlet request from Spring Boot. So request, and in this one we're gonna return the HTTP headers from a .NET. No, it's not net, it's Spring Boot HTTP. You should pay attention here on which one did you import it. You should import this one, the Spring Framework .http.http headers. So So this will be the redirect function. So that's it. Now we should create the details here. So I'm gonna create it as a record domain detail. Since it's a small project, I'm gonna be creating all here. So domain detail dot URL. So what we have in the response, what I prefer to return in the response is the string and the string shorten URL. Okay. And now on the request detail, we should put on the same folder. And what we're gonna return is string URL. On the request, when we do the request on the postman, we should send the URL that we want to shorten. That's it. Now I'm gonna create a new folder inside the service called implementation dot URL service implementation. So this class will implement the URL service interface that we just created, and now we're gonna implement the methods here. This is a service class, so we should have the service notation and the all-args constructor, since we're gonna inject the URL repository here to make the database calls. Let me see here. It should be final. I always forget this one. So now let's create the logic on the shorten URL. What we're gonna need here is the Apache Commons link. Since I already have it downloaded in here, I'm just gonna copy paste the dependency. So here we have the org Apache Commons commons lang, where it's a easier way to implement the alphanumeric random on 5 to 10 characters, so we can create our shortened URL. So commons lang, it's already downloaded. Now we're gonna be creating the logic behind the shorten URL. So string ID, it's gonna be the ID, or you can have URL, but I prefer to use ID. We're gonna start this new variable, and then we're gonna have a do while to verify if the URL that we saved already exists in the database. So if it already exists, we should create another one. So if the handle numeric that we're gonna be creating, it's not a unique, so it can have the same one. It's really hard, but it can have the same one, so we're gonna be creating this validation. Do while URL repository find by ID exists by ID. Why is it wrong? ID might have, see, string ID, start. So ID handle string choose dot handle alphanumeric. We're gonna have the 5 to 10. This is gonna be the side of the alphanumeric that we're gonna be creating. So let's just do this. So while the URL in the repository exists by this ID that we passed here on the data, this ID that we are creating randomly. So while this ID exists, we're gonna be creating another one. So we're gonna be creating another one, and the ID will be attributed by this one. So there's always this kind of checking if the ID exists in the database. If not, we assume that it doesn't exist, so we're gonna be using the one that it's not in the database. So if it exists in the database, we're gonna do the same search, and we're gonna create a new random alphanumeric string. So now that we pass the validation, we can do URL repository save new URL entity, and we're gonna pass the ID, this one that we created, and the data.url and local datetime dot now plus minutes. We're gonna have it's gonna be 1 minute, it's gonna be okay. So the ID of this entity that we're saving is the ID that we generated. The URL that we should save, knowing that it's the URL that we want to shorten, should be the one that we passed in the body. And the expiration date is going to be the now, this moment, plus 1 minute. So we're going to have a short period of time on this shortened URL. So now the redirection URL will be request.get headers, request.get request URL dot toString, replace the one that we passed on the endpoint that we created. We're going to be creating this soon, so shorten URL by ID, and then return. I'm gonna explain this right now. Return new URL response and data URL and the URL that we created right now, directed URL. So why I have done this here? So in our controller will probably be URL slash shorten URL. We're gonna be making a post request to this one. So when it comes in this variable here, we get the URL that we sent the request, and then we replace the shortened URL by the ID. So we received an endpoint in this, we received a request in this endpoint, and then we're going to transform this in the ID. So the ID will be this, and then we're gonna have the redirect URL as this URL to be sent this request. It's kind of hard to explain, but that's kind of it. We're gonna be seeing it working. So that's it. Now we're gonna create the redirect logic. So first of all, we're gonna make a call on the URL repository, find by ID, or else throw, and then HTTP headers. I think it's not found exception. No. We're gonna be doing this later. So HTTP headers and equals new HTTP headers. Headers dot set location as URE dot create URL dot get URL, and then we should return headers. What we've done here, we searched from this ID, the ID from the redirect in the database. If it was found, we're gonna be setting this as the new URI in the location that we are sending the request. It's gonna be easier when we show it. So it's gonna be easier to understand when we show it, in fact. So I think that's it for now. Then we're gonna create the exceptions, but for now I think that's it. So now let's create the controller, URL controller. So since it's a controller, we should have the REST controller and the allargs constructor, so we can inject the service in here. We're gonna have a post mapping on the URL that we created here. So I'm running again. Post mapping / shorten URL, and then we're gonna send a public response entity, URL response detail, shorten URL. I'm gonna have the request body, URL request detail, data, HTTP servlet request, and we will return response entity.ok URL service, shorten URL, send the data and the request. And now the redirect, it's gonna be this endpoint. We're gonna have the ID, get ID, and we're gonna return void, have the path variable ID, HTTP headers, is the so now that we have these endpoints here, the redirect will get the URL and will return the headers. So and then with the found HTTP status. So now let's run and test if it's okay. Okay, it's running. So now let's test. Oh, my Postman is buggy. Here it is. So let's try to shorten the Google URL. So send. Now let's verify if it's created in our database. This URL, it is. It's with this ID. So now let's try to run it because we have only 1 minute to google.com. There it is. So we passed our URL and with the ID, and we are redirected to Google. Now it's still here. It's gonna be expired in 1 minute from now, so the clock isn't showing here. Let's wait a little and we'll try to do this again on there it is. It already expired. So now if I come in here and try to search it, it's sending an error. We can treat this error in a better way. We can create a few exceptions here. Since it's already a long video, I'm gonna just copy paste the exceptions that I've done here. So I'm gonna paste it here. Here you can see that we we were supposed to have it, but my copy paste was wrong. Apparently it should have the exceptions folder here, but we can create the folder called exceptions, and we pass the handler, the model, and the URL not found exception in the exceptions folder. So now we have here, what we have here is a URL not found exception. It's a extendable from runtime exception, and we pass the URL ID, and we send this message to the user. It's a URL with the ID was not found. Here we have the model URL from our project, URL shortener error. It returns the timestamp on this format. It returns the code of the exception, the status of the exception, and a list of errors, because it can have more than one error. Here it's failing because of the imports. So I copy pasted from another project that I've done before, so it's gonna be easier to import in here. So there it is. Here's the exception handler. Every time the controller advice catches this URL not found exception, we are gonna handle the not found exception, sending a timestamp from local datetime.now, HTTP status not found, the same way that is asked in the project specifications, and we're gonna send a list of get messages from the exception. Now the only thing that we should do is call this exception in here. So in here you can see that I sent a or else throw, but we're gonna be sending a new URL not found exception with the ID, passing the ID. So now let's try to run again the application. And there it is. I'm gonna create a new URL, the same one from Google, and we already were redirected. Now let's try to make a get request with this database, this URL here. It should send the not found, the exception that we created right now. So there is the timestamp with the date and the time. The code is 404 because it's not found. The status is not found, and the messages, the error messages, is URL with the ID is not found. So that's it from this project. We could implement unit tests and other stuff that we would be able to run in a better way the project, but it's a real simple project. Maybe in another opportunity we can create the unit tests, and I'll go through a step-by-step on unit tests on Spring Boot. It's really cool to do, and I think that's it. Returning now, I should probably post more videos. I want to post more videos, and I hope you guys liked it. If you liked, hit the subscribe button, share with your friends that are trying to learn Java and Spring Boot. And that's it. If you have any concerns or any comments to make, go ahead and make the comment. If you want to say that the video was trashy, or if my audio is not good, you comment there. If you liked, you should hit the like button. If you don't like, hit the dislike button and say why you didn't like the video. If you liked it, I would be really happy to receive a comment on why you liked it and what I should do next. So I think that's it. Go in the GitHub, I'll post this project, and go on the Backend Brazil GitHub too, because they have some really cool projects where you can learn and apply things that you learned on Spring Boot. So Spring Boot and many other programming languages, there are the challenges and there are also the solutions from the challenges. So you can go and base yourself on them, or you can make your own solution and maybe try to call them and post your solution there on their GitHub too. So I think that's it. Thank you for watching and have a nice day.